It's Chris Oatley's ArtCast, episode 62. An interview with character designer Brett 2D Bean, with music by the Hokum High Rollers. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Chris Oatley's ArtCast. I'm Chris Oatley, and I was a character designer and visual development artist at Disney until I recently left to pursue my passion for teaching, and I started the Oatley Academy of Concept Art and Illustration at chrisoatley.com. That's ChrisOatley.com. I just launched a brand new digital painting course called The Magic Box, Everything I Know About Digital Painting. And you can learn all about that course and grab a free lesson at chrisoatley.com/magicbox. At age 10, Brett 2D Bean wanted to be a rock drummer, but his mom told him he had to become an artist because drawing is quiet. It must have been good advice because Brett is now one of the most adored character designers in the animation industry, and it's not just his mom who adores him. Among the Oatley Academy students, as well as many other art schools across the world, I am sure, Brett is one of the most frequently mentioned inspirations. I met Brett 2D Bean at San Diego Comic-Con a few years back. The clock was ticking. I only had 2 hours to spend on the exhibit floor, and I was rushing around to find several of my friends before everything shut down. Despite my urgency, Brett's work stopped me in my tracks. I was inspired by his stellar talent and shocked by the depth of his humility. I spent about 20 minutes talking to him and his awesome wife, Julie, and I knew right then that I had made friends for life. Finally, Brett is on the ArtCast, and his contribution exceeded my already high expectations. Prepare yourselves. You might even get a little choked up around the 1 hour mark. It's a long episode, so we'll just get right to it, but before we do, I just need to extend a personal thank you. I've been reflecting a lot on my life recently, as I tend to be a fairly introspective person. But I, as you heard in the last episode, the interview with Disney legends John Pomeroy and Tom Bancroft, I spent some time in the American South recently, getting back to my roots. And trips like that tend to inspire introspection. And as I was reflecting, I just once again was just filled with profound gratitude. I had no idea what true fulfillment was until I was able to pursue my dream of starting my own online art school. And now I get to spend all day working with and for my students, working on the website, creating blog posts and tutorials and answering questions via email and Twitter and Facebook. And I just love it. I once heard it said that you have found your calling when you discover the thing that you can lose all sense of time when you're doing it. And I definitely can lose total track of time when I'm out there engaging with you online. And it's my passion, my joy, my fulfillment that I get to be at least a small part of this very important pursuit of creative and artistic growth in your life. And it's because of you. It's because of your support. It's because you've shared posts. It's because you've tweeted about. I just got a text message from my wife that just says, "Thankful for you, sweets." So gratitude must be in the air at the Oatley household. I'm gonna have to go kiss her on her face now. But anyway, I just have to. I know I'm gushing, but it's what's in my heart, and I just have to say thank you. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Thank you for supporting the site. Thank you for spreading the word about the Academy, and those of you who have enrolled in courses at the Oatley Academy and you're out there just gushing about them and sharing them. My heart is just, I feel like I'm going to explode right now with gratitude. So thank you. This episode is awesome. Brett brings the thunder. So I will not delay any further. Here is my friend, Brett 2D Bean. So just give us a quick bio, just a little, like a teaser trailer of the story of your life.
Ooh, a teaser of the story of my life.
As an artist.
Okay. I wanted to be a drummer when I was a kid. And my mother gave me a piece of paper and a pencil because she said it was more quiet. So
you started drumming.
That's literally how it started. Is I really wanted to be in a band. I was growing out my hair long, and I was like, I want to do this.
How old were you at this?
It was right in the phase of MTV, so I really wanted to grow my hair out, even though I didn't really know what that entailed. But I was probably about 10.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You were rock and roll.
Yeah, I really that's what I wanted. But piece of paper and a pencil, and then growing up, we would go to church for 3 hours a session. And so the entire 3 hours is me sitting there drawing like Star Wars and G.I. Joe on top of the, churches blowing. Church actually, church helped me out quite a bit for a long time.
I drew Minnie and Ninja Turtle in the margin.
Right? Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And then
maybe even in some in the hymnal too. Yeah. I can't quite remember. But.
Right. That could be worth something someday. We got to find some of those old hymnals.
Well, somewhere in Lexington, Kentucky, there is an illustrated hymnal. Chris Oatley's first
signed first edition of the hymn book. Awesome. And then after that, I went to art school for 3D animation. I was an environment artist, and then grew into concept art, character design, visual development after that. So I've kind of been doing that on and off for about 10 years as a professional artist.
And just give us a couple quick highlights of some of the places you worked.
Let's see. Sony in Bend, Oregon. I was at Zipper Interactive, making the SOCOM Navy SEAL games. Amazing Society, Marvel Superhero Squad, and then I've worked with Nerdcore in Canada on Slugterra. A lot of other freelance opportunities here and there, a little bit everywhere. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I also need to say here at the top of the show that there are there are three names most often mentioned at the Oatley Academy by students at the Oatley Academy: Mike Yamada, Vicky Ying, and Brett Bean.
Wow.
And you guys are pretty much the quintessential, icons of animation success.
Wow. I'm in good company.
As is determined by the student body at the Oatley Academy. And, there's something really interesting about this, about the fact that you've bootstrapped a lot in your careers. You're always doing your own thing in addition to your industry work.
Yeah.
Is this an option for aspiring artists? Or is there any option but to do your own thing, to make your own books or do your own personal projects? Is there an option to do just the traditional, I draw a lot, get a strong portfolio, go work at the studio, and remain anonymous?
I think all of it's an option. I think it's up to each individual, and that's the thing to really remember, is you're an individual, and whatever speaks most to you, your lifestyle, what you want out of your career, what you want out of your personal goals, all those things should come into play when you make that decision, whether you're going to go off on your own, you want to be your own boss, you don't want that headache of always kind of searching and freelancing. So, getting a studio job and learning that way. So to me, it's always, anything's an option. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much the only rails are the ones that you put on yourself. The road, it's an open road, and wherever you place the things saying like, I don't want to do this, that's where you place them, but it's all open. That's kind of the cool thing, is you get to choose what you want to do with your life. So it shouldn't be any different with your art career.
That's awesome. That is not where I thought you were going to go.
Oh, really?
That.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
No.
Where would you like me to go with that?
Good. Please, let me just put my own opinions down on paper here for you, and then you could just regurgitate them and make me feel really smart.
Okay.
That's the goal. That's the goal of this show.
Oh, I didn't know.
That's why I bring on rock stars like yourself to just validate me all the time. No, seriously. That's not where I thought. And because I don't think of it as an option anymore. Now, I don't think that you have to do your own book, per se. I don't think you have to do your own Kickstarter campaign, but I feel like you have to. But now I'm questioning everything because you just said this, and I believe, that you know what you're talking about. So this is interesting to me because I previously, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to get a gig in animation anymore without some sort of reputation going in front of you, even if that's not. I'm not saying somebody has to be famous. I'm not saying that's like, unless you're internet famous or Twitter famous, you're never going to succeed in it. That's not what I'm saying.
I agree.
I just mean that there has to be some sort of activity, some sort of presence online that's where where people can interact with your work before they hire you or before they, buy your thing from your Etsy store or whatever.
Right. Yeah, an online presence is definitely, you definitely need that. But I think you could, I think a lot of people are totally good in a studio environment where the people they work around realize what an asset they are.
Yeah.
So they don't need to carry all their energy into letting the rest of the world know about it. A lot of that is career driven on what you want, but a lot of it is also ego driven as well, where we want to be, admired, but we want to be seen by our peer, reaffirmed as artists, because we're all narcissistic and we're all crazy neuroses. But I think a lot of people can, if that's what they really want out of their career, is I want to work at a studio. There are still those jobs. If you could get into a smaller studio where it's a group of 10 people all working, and you could bust out a whole career doing that, and you don't have to have a desire to make the rest of the world. You want them to see your product at the end of the day, and you're one piece of a bigger puzzle. That's a fine way to go in your career. So, but for people like us, I enjoy that back and forth, dealing with people on a regular basis, trying to get my own stuff out there. That speaks to me. But really, I can't ever dictate what somebody else should do with their career, because it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's very. I think you're right. Because there are people that still go get jobs at studios, and I guess part of me thinks, maybe all of me thinks this. I don't really know. Yeah, this is good. I'm having to work here. We're
I like that.
5 minutes in, and I'm
Nice.
you're already challenging me. This is great. It has been up until now. Perhaps going forward, I don't know. I'll get back to everyone about this. But it has been that it's so competitive. Do everything possible to stand out, to rise above, as opposed to the anonymous portfolio submission. Well, it's not really anonymous, but it can feel anonymous when you're just sending your portfolio away, and there's no other sense of no other points of contact that you have with people in the industry or with even your peers online. The isolated artist doesn't seem like it seems like that's a harder way to go.
I would agree with that. I believe it is a harder way to go. It's still a possible way. It's hard to ever say that this is the only way to do it, because as soon as you say that, somebody's going to turn around and do the opposite and go, guess what?
Right.
I'm a liar.
Yeah, right.
So
Totally.
it's hard to say. I do think it's easier to get yourself out there and make sure that you have an online presence and let people know what you do is very beneficial to you. I just don't think it's the only way, but it is definitely from what I've seen, a better way.
Yeah.
But I can't tell somebody that if they don't want to go that route and they want to just say, I just want it to be based off the merits of my work, and they put it in enough faces, you hope that one day the person opens the door so you can kick it in.
Well, and that's a great point too, because something that when people write me now and they say, hey, how can I connect with people in the industry? It's a no-brainer. The number one answer is number one by a landslide, and that is go to CTNX. Right. And really, you don't need a blog or a book or anything to do that. Just go and just be around people and just engage and just that's it. Just be helpful and be a friend to people there. And doors just open when you just take care of people. And you can that's a really good point. You don't have to have a Kickstarter campaign to be cool, No. And by cool, I mean just...
Yeah, be cool, be chill, be a good
fun
person.
To be around, exactly.
I would say that along with CTN being like way up there, your personality, I think, is very underrated. I don't think enough people talk about how much your personality really does affect your career, how you interact with other artists when you freelance and you just deal with an art director, when you deal with the person sitting next to you that you're there for 12 hours a day with. Your personality really motivates the rest of your career, because they'll want to either work with you again or never want to work with you again. Remember what you did to them, remember that you're a good guy. All those things come into play, like how you help students out and they come up with portfolio reviews. All that stuff adds. So that's a big portion to me too, is
that's awesome.
This personality.
You are a remarkable character designer. And I've been on this mission to ask every character designer I know this question. Okay. And that is, to you, what is appeal? It's this intangible thing that nobody seems to really agree on. What do you think it is?
Oh man, appeal.
Everybody knows you need it. Everybody knows it's super important, but nobody seems to be able to... Nobody has one straight answer, one agreed upon answer.
I think appeal is truth from the artist. I think if that artist is being truthful in what they're trying to say and what they're trying to do, when they're getting at the heart of a character or a feeling towards a piece of art, whatever it is, they're doing a big composition, whatever it is, if you can get to the truth of what that artist is trying to get across. Because appeal, a lot of people talk about it like it's just, here's the cute character and it's got appeal and he's holding a bunny rabbit. But appeal can be in the villains, it can be in a story set, it could be so many different things. So to me, it's more of, can the artist understand the truth of what they're trying to get across?
So when do you... can you think of specific times where you see that appeal has been lost, or that's kind of missed the mark in a certain kind of work, or what? How do you, when is it not there? When do you see? Can you give an example of what something is kind of designs you've seen in portfolios that lack appeal?
When somebody's just trying to put something in their portfolio because that's what they think somebody wants to see. And when it comes to a portfolio, they're going, I'm going to make a turnaround of a fantasy character who's a Viking because that's what's big right now. And I just saw How to Train Your Dragon, so they put that in. So it could be really nice, but it's not speaking from that artist's point of view. So there's design set of appeal, but then there's artistic sense of appeal. And I guess those are probably two different conversations with appeal, because you can learn a lot about the design appeal, but it goes deeper than that.
There's a passion.
Yeah, there's a passion behind it.
So is that detectable to you? Do you feel like?
Well, it can be fooled pretty good with well-designed, can fool it. And that's what I think a lot of artists do when you're designing by committee, and that will always happen at a studio. So there'll be passionate projects, and then there's going to be one where you have the art director who's also listening to the producer, who's also listening to the CEO, and it all trickles down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm making the Pumpkin King, and the CEO is like, I hate pumpkins. Yeah. How dare you do pumpkins? And so you have to, okay, how about a different squash? And all of a sudden you're putting this all in, but as long as you still have what you originally wanted that character to feel like, it's that truth part. So that's, I don't know if that's right or wrong, because appeal is so amorphous that it's hard to have a right or wrong answer. But that's the one that I tend to see. And even in my work, when I do stuff for freelancers, I will give them what they want, and then I will do an extra round of, this is where I think it could go.
Right.
And I think once you get so many hands in there saying, well, I think you should change the eyes to this and change to this, all of a sudden that hodgepodge, you start to lose that truth.
Yeah.
And it becomes a little bit less appealing, because you don't have any sort of real vision. You have like 5 different ones kind of crammed into one. And so that's where I see sometimes it losing it in certain movies, or I won't call anybody else out, but that's
right, of course.
Even my work.
And that this is amazing, because that's what we do when we're doing our own personal work and we lose the appeal. That design by committee is happening in our minds.
Yes.
Right. It's even and that's, I guess, so the real remedy is, remember that there is no committee. You can have a singular vision, and you don't have to work the thing to death. And I guess it's just the awareness that you're allowed to just design the character,
which is tough. You have to kind of relax a little bit. You have to kind of let yourself wander and play with a bit, but then you have to have a purpose for that character.
Right.
There's warm-up drawing, and then there's a reason for this character. This character is, this personality type, and he's got to feel this way, and then by the end of the story, he's got to grow into this.
Yeah.
All those things will come into play. So, but you have to let yourself kind of go and say, this is what I think it is. I think in your own mind, you play your art director, you play the artist, you play the CEO, you play all those same roles. They're just not other people, but they're all different voices in my head. I don't know how they are for you.
I know what you mean.
But yeah, the CEO goes like, well, that's not going to be appealing to the populace of America, so you got to change the character to look more like this.
Right.
And you have to kind of battle back and forth and go, okay, what does the artist want to say, and then what is the thing? Because no matter what, it's also part of your business too.
Right.
As an artist, you're also a business entity. So you have to balance all those things out, but as long as you're truthful at the end of the day.
Man, yeah, because that's the thing. It's like when you see, it is true that we know it when we see it. We know appeal when we see it, and we feel that. You feel that passion in the design. Andreas Deja is probably the best, one of the best examples of that. You just look at just the line work and the Jafar design, and you can feel it's so decisive.
Yeah, and he felt that character, and you could see that that he there was a love for it, and it comes across.
Can you share a little bit about your approach to character design?
If it's my own, the concepts will be floating around my head, and I'll do very little reference gathering, because it's pretty descriptive in my brain. So it's going to be a lot of quick drawings to get the idea down. I'm much more on the design idea side than I am the full-on sit down, do one illustration sort of approach. Those are two different takes on what we do as a career. But me, I'm more on the design, like, oh yeah, let's get that idea down. So the concept-wise, it's going to be kind of dirty, and it'll be really quick sort of ideas, and then iteration, like, oh, I think that's better. Oh, we should add that to that. So it's a very amorphous way of working. Yeah. Once I get stuck, then I start getting into the reference gathering. So, and that would be more of like a freelance job or a studio job where they say, this character needs to be, samurai from the, Shogun era. Right. Then you're like, all right, I can start with a couple ideas of basic shapes. But then when you really start thinking about, I don't really know that much about the armor, but I will try to get out as much of my own just everyday reference gathering, which is watching movies and all that kind of stuff. All the stuff that's already kind of the mental Rolodex that's built in. Right. I'll get rid of that stuff first. And then when I get exhausted with it, or I get stuck, then I bring in the reference. Because if I do reference too early, I become a slave to it way too soon. I start relying on it way too early. So I'll do reference, and that'll be real reference. That'll be real photos, real things that I do, fashion photography, whatever it is. After that phase is done, then I would go look at other artists after I'm stuck on that phase. Mm-hmm. So, and that's because we're a very incestuous industry.
Oh, yeah.
Where everybody kind of just paints on top of each other, and then everything kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
I try to put that dead last, so it only influences maybe 10 to 15% of my overall design. So I put that last, so it doesn't, so all of me comes out first.
Right. And
then all the stuff from World comes out, and then influences from things that other artists have done. So.
And why? So with the strength of with that last percentage of the influence stuff, why influence at all?
Why influence that at the end?
Why reference Chuck Jones?
Maybe it's something I missed. Maybe it's something it spurs on another idea that actually I put that away and go back to my first phase again.
Oh, man.
And then start that all over. So maybe that last 10% is kind of like, the last little kind of gas in the engine, and you go, you get one more spurt, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Okay, I can't do that, but what can I... Why was I excited about that other artist's idea? Let's put that away, because I never have it out while I'm looking at it. Put that away, and then no matter what, as I get further away from it, I can't possibly do the same thing because I'll have forgotten it over time because my head is like a sieve. So it'll eventually go away, and then you're back to that first phase of incorporating something, but you're not copying.
Yeah, that's great.
You're not using it.
That's great. So it's like a layered synthesis of all these things of your initial impulse, the actual drawing,
right?
Then the reference, making sure that you draw it correctly, and then that's
also, sorry, I have to say that's also after this many years,
right?
At the beginning, reference was always the first, because I didn't know how to draw. I didn't know how to, you know what I mean. So I was looking at that kind of stuff to make sure I knew how to draw a sword or a gun or character, finger, stuff like that. That came earlier in the process.
An important detail.
Yeah. But as you grow as an artist in your career, you can start to leave some of that behind because that's part of your mental Rolodex at that point. That's what you're doing with all that reference. You're just remembering those things, all the movies you see, and you remember composition. And it's not just character design, it's every single thing that you pick up. Music, how it makes you feel, how that imagery from a Tom Waits song, all that stuff sits in there, and then it will come out later on. And that's all you're doing is building up your mental Rolodex for you to draw on, and you don't have to worry about reference and other artists and stuff. You're just gathering information.
That's great, because even when I was designing characters on Planes and Planes 2, well, first of all, they're not, they weren't all planes. I mean, a lot of them were still, four-wheeled vehicles or whatever. Spoiler alert.
They got eyeballs.
There are cars. There are some cars in planes.
Oh, man. You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first.
Anyway, the point being, it's got to look like, it's like, okay, the character's an SUV. Or what? I have to know what an SUV, and I never draw cars. That was one thing. Working on those movies was great. It was amazing because I worked on all those Disney Fairies movies, and then moved on to the Planes franchise. And in both of those contexts, I was working completely out of my comfort zone.
Right, one's completely organic to all the way mechanic.
And there were all these cute female characters that I've always had struggled with and never been able to do well. And then I never draw vehicles ever. Right. I never did that. And so it was like both, movies that I've had sort of a, significant contribution to.
To extremes.
Yeah, nice. are things that I sucked at. I was terrible at both. And so that's kind of amazing. But anyway, the point being, I don't know what an SUV looks like. It's like I see them all the time, but I just don't really care too much about.
Right.
I care about classic cars. The point is, I would go and sort of do almost like a glance at the real thing, and then would go and work on all the iterations and doing all the designs and just riffing, like you're saying, just shapes and whatever, and then would go back through and kind of try and bring it back into what it's actually supposed to be.
Yeah.
Take us back to when, you've already kind of hinted at this about your mom changing the subject from being a drummer,
right,
But when did you first feel the hook? You know, you got this sense that you want to do art for a living.
Oh, I know the exact moment.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a contest. I was in middle school, and they had a contest to design the back of the Puget Sound Aquarium on Wheels truck. So it would go to inner city schools that didn't have the money to have kids do field trips,
Wow.
and it would bring the field trip to them. So, and I was in the nicer part of the neighborhood, and that was one of the things is they said like, hey, do you want to help design? We want it from other kids. And so I entered this contest, and my design, it was a octopus on roller skates, got a Puget Sound on Wheels aquarium, you know, and that got on the back of the truck, and they liked it so much they turned it into stickers. And it was once I saw all the people I was going to school with actually had my sticker on their notebooks.
Wow.
That was it. I was like, I think I want to do this. I want to do this. This is really cool. So,
Wow, that's amazing.
and now I had a lot of downs because I applied to every comic book company. I kept for a long time. I kept every submission denial that I got back. Every single email, every single writing saying sorry, you're not good enough, or you're not the right fit. I kept every single one of them because I seemed to deal well on disproving people. You know, proving people wrong is a big force in my life. So as soon as it says it can't be done, that's usually my first thing. Like, oh yeah, get ready, it's about to get done. So yeah, that's usually a pretty good motivator for me. So
awesome.
My wife knows that all too well. But she avoids that because she knows that's exactly what I'll do.
One of my email subscribers wrote me yesterday, and she was talking about how she was holding on to her rejection letters, and it asked me if I, you know, experienced that, if I got, you know, a bunch of I was like, heck yeah, I've got so, I mean, but I lost count, and I didn't hold on to them. I just, you know, I just kind of went on merrily along, you know, just kept painting. You know? I mean, but there was a competitive aspect to it because I would paint with, I would take like specifically the art of Star Wars, of the Star Wars prequels, and Monsters Inc. I mean, other books, but those were, you know, kind of the most frequently accessed books. And I would actually prop them up on either side of my computer monitor. And,
there you go.
And I would go, is it that good? Is it that good yet?
Right.
Still not that good. Still not that good.
No, those guys are amazing.
But anyway, so you were, now this is interesting too, because you weren't fixated on, I want to work at Pixar, or I want to work at, you know, you were more just interested in wanting to do art for a living in more of an intangible sense. At what point did it become like animation studio or game studio or whatever at some point? At
first, I wanted to work at Pixar, Disney. I thought they were the pinnacle of art creation, of what we were doing in our industry. And then, you know, I was talking to one of the Pixar guys. I got an opportunity. I won't call him out on this because it was really good advice. And he's like, why should you care? Like, really, why should you really care? Like, how much of it you wanting to work at Disney Pixar is hubris?
Yeah.
And how much of it is that you really want to work there? So dissect the reasoning behind your goals.
Yep.
And so that was tough. You know, I kind of went home and really did some soul searching, but it was the best advice I could have. Is like, he's right. I want to work in an environment where I'm learning and I'm helping and I'm making people laugh and making people happy.
Yeah.
Doing art for a living.
Yeah.
And everything switched. That's when everything kind of moved around, and my goal was no longer, I have to be here, or I have to be here and do this. There's so many great companies that I would love the opportunity to work with, but it's no longer the goal.
Right. Pixar is not the end in and of itself.
No, it's not the end all be all.
Although,
of course,
you are available.
You'd work with some amazing people.
Yeah.
And to me, that is probably the biggest draw towards those companies.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the properties they're working on. It's being around those other artists and other facilitators to learn from and grow and figure out. And, you know, that's the really important part.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, something I tell my students is Disney is convenient. It's easy to go, I want to work at Disney, because Disney is there. It's everywhere you turn. You're constantly being reminded of the marketing.
They own my entire childhood
exactly,
now. It's hard not to know.
Exactly. And that's great. I mean, I fan the flame of the dream to work at Disney or Pixar or anywhere else, but it's just important to keep that in mind. It's important to keep it in mind that this isn't, first of all, it's not the only option, and like you said, it makes you, a question like this forces you to examine what actually is the thing that you want. That's a journey I've been on for a long time, actually.
Like, what's the point of your career? It's the point, because you're always kind of looking for your point of your life. Your career is your second life. And that's, it's a good question to ask as well. It's like, what's the point? What are you trying to say with your life?
I thought I was pursuing becoming a director because I don't fit anywhere else really.
Right.
And I still think I could, but it's completely changed in the sense that it was sort of a twofold thing. One, starting my comic, I realized I can scratch the storytelling itch this way, and it's much less painful.
Right.
It's much less painful than just going and developing countless things that might never happen. I can just make the comic.
And it's yours.
And it's mine. I can just tell the story. If I want to have a big old explosion or a whatever, it's like I can put it in there. And so that was a really important thing. And then the other was starting the Oatley Academy, was starting to teach and realizing that I'm more fulfilled by encouraging and inspiring my students than I feel like I would be encouraging and inspiring a group of people who are employees for a large, media company or whatever. I feel like for the first time in my entire life, I've found what I'm supposed to be doing. It's amazing. But that's exactly it. Is that it was like, it took so long to figure that out. What are the itches that need to be scratched? And it was the ability to tell stories and to be able to work with, and mentor people, basically. Right.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, we were talking about this earlier, like that A to Z. You want to get from A to Z as quickly as you can, that end goal. Because I would say also as Americans, we want to get there as quick as we can, and we just want it to be done, and like, okay, there it is. Internet tweets, whatever it is, YouTube, A to Z as fast as possible. But it's all the in between. The journey is the destination. And you don't learn that until later on, as the world kind of grows. Well, this is going to be a side note, but I was trying to relate to my students that to video games. So at first, your world is basically a first-person shooter. You only see what's in front of you, and wherever you turn, that's what's in front of you, right? And then as you get to college and you get to your early 30s, it's a third-person shooter.
It's amazing.
So it's pulled back. Camera's pulled back a little bit. You're seeing a little bit more. You can see the people to the left and right of you. You know that you're on this journey with other people. You take that into account. And then as you have children, you get in your 40s, 50s.
You got 100 orcs in the barn.
You're an RTS, right? So your camera view is even higher up. You're really high up as RTS. You're seeing all these moving parts. You got your resources. You have your other things. You have all the stuff you're juggling all at the same time. And then as you begin to die, you're back to Pac-Man, where you're a little guy running away from ghosts until you die. But that's my entire idea behind video games.
That's amazing.
As people. And that's kind of how, I tried to relate it to him, is like at various stages in your life, just like your career, I definitely make the metaphor between your life and your career, because it's basically a second, relationship that you're having throughout everything. Is your perspective has a lot to do with that, and
Man, that's awesome. The internet affords us the ability to just start anything we want, pretty much, and in light of a lot of what we've been talking about. You don't need anyone's permission anymore.
No, it's the good thing and the bad thing about the internet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
A lot of haters.
Well, and it's so easy to start stuff. This is something, again, this is another rant for me, but it's so easy to start stuff that now finishing things is like that's the big deal. Right. That you have something done, because anyone can start anything now. And so the special thing is actually seeing a project through. Like, what a novel concept.
I know, right?
But can you talk about your sort of arrival in that? I mean, because you've been very much a self-starter in your career, and I wasn't joking when I told you on Twitter the other day. I was like, you're sort of an icon of that, at Oatley Academy. how did that happen? How did you, because just like we were talking earlier back at the house, you're not like shameless self-promotion guy or anything, so yet you
I do it just enough to be comfortable, but not over the point where it feels like I've lost the point of why I do it. I want people to come along for the ride, but just enough to say like, okay, if it's warranted, you'll come along for the ride, but I'm not going to shove it down your throat. But I think a lot of that has happened over trial and error and accident, just like how I paint and draw and everything else. Like I like figuring out, there's two different personality types, right? There's the people that want to read the tutorial on how to play a video game, and they'll go through the entire tutorial on how to hit every button. And then there are the people like me who pick up the controller and just start going, what does X do? What does Y do? What does this do? You know what I mean? So both of them are sound ways of learning,
right,
and sound ways of going about your life. But that's a distinct difference that I've noticed in people. And I'm the one who just kind of jumps in and does it by accident and then kind of goes back and fixes. So, I used to go by brettbbean.com and then nobody could get to it because they forgot the middle B. So all these little things, I'm like, okay, I need to come up with something. All right, 2D Bean is going to be now that moniker. That's going to be my name I'm going to put out there. And really because 2D Bean, it's 2D because I didn't want to do 3D anymore, but also because it sounds like a 2D bean,
right,
like gaseous bean. So when I put those two things together, then that became, I'm going to put that on everything. That's going to be my LinkedIn. That's going to be my Facebook. So everything has the same sort of feel to it. And so when I would post things, it would all be from the same entity, and that made it much easier to say this is who I am, but I don't have to go shill out to so many different places and say, oh, here I am on this DeviantArt account, and then here I am over at this. It's all kind of one entity, so it all becomes the 2D Bean sort of idea behind it, but it's all by accident. It's all been trial and error, like, oh, that didn't work out. I've redone blogs before, and I've redone DeviantArt accounts and conceptart.org. So it's all been a learning process.
And so when did you start doing conventions kind of frequently?
The conventions was probably about 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, so fairly recently.
Yeah, fairly recently. Huh. I haven't, I think I did the Seattle one year, probably about 5-6 years ago, and then I didn't do anything for a long time. And then I picked it up with CTN, and that's when I was like, okay, you know what? I think I can do this. I have more product.
Right.
I have more things about me, what I'm doing, instead of just working for studios, because you can't really, sell prints of what you're doing for a studio. But I had enough material like sketchbooks and stuff to go, okay, now I can warrant doing this on a more regular basis.
Right.
And it just kind of snowballed from there because, we were talking about prints and, all those kind of things. You don't know what's going to sell. You don't know. And at first I was putting out stuff like at the very beginning is like, well, I see fan art and that's what they want. And I about killed myself to do that first piece of fan art and print it out, and I was embarrassed by it, and I was like,
wow.
But that was the first con. I was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm never gonna put a piece of fan art and try to sell it. I'm either gonna be me, and that's it. So there's not a single book, there's not a single print, there's not a single button. Nothing isn't just from a passion from what I want to say, because people come up and they say like, oh, how come you don't have any of this or any of that? And I go, well, because
I can't.
It's about me. I can't. Yeah. Or it's not what speaks to me, and that's not what I'm about.
Right.
Which is, it's a career choice.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Well, and you, it seems, I don't know. I don't want to. It seems like in a way that almost was the key to unlocking your. We talked about the 2D Bean brand, so to speak, but it's almost like that, like making that decision is what freed you to then do the best work that you've ever done.
Definitely. But you have to do that in trial and error.
Right.
You have to kind of screw up, but it's the ability to have introspect and be able to see yourself and not just through your own eyes, but kind of take a step back is awesome if you have it. Some people are just full on, they're just who they are, and that's always what they're going to be. But if you can develop a way to kind of pull back a little bit from yourself and kind of see where you're going and what you're doing, and if you're making the right decisions that speak to you, it's a valuable asset that will last you forever. And that was one of those moments where I got to pull back and go, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right for me. And I'm not taking that away from other people who do it. It's a personal choice. And that was just not, something was, that bad taste in your mouth. You're like, every time I sell this print, that's not good. And so you remember that stuff and you go, okay, that's not what I want me to be about. I want it to be about what I'm passionate about and what I like. And
I've been around a lot of directors now in my career, and I've sought out many of them, and even people that might not be movie directors but are in a directorial role even. And something I feel like that I've noticed is that, well, and I don't know if this is fully true or not, but it's something I'm working out in my head, which is this idea that the difference between a good director and a great director is the capacity for deep self-assessment. If you can really stop and, like you said, back out and see yourself, see your own work, see the project, see the movie, if the movie's working or not.
Definitely.
And that ability to switch back and forth between microscopic, surgical mode and the big picture, and to be able to do that back and forth all the time makes you an effective visual storyteller in this case.
Definitely. Peter Jackson, I think it was Peter Jackson. I apologize if it's not you, sir. Like
good old
Pete. But he said the first thing he did was edit out his favorite scene in the editing process, because that freed him up to not worry about his own pride. And that all of a sudden alleviated that entire thing. That's like, I got to keep this one scene in. Once that's gone, and you just go, okay, that's it. Then it frees you up to be a slave to the story, slave to the idea, the product, instead of your own, I need this part. And I thought that was very smart.
That is amazing. And that's so true.
It was so cool.
Because so much of tunnel vision is exactly that. It's the one favorite thing that you're trying, that all of a sudden the whole project becomes about that. Yeah. But it's like, well, maybe the project isn't about that.
Yeah, and it's usually gets better because of it. So.
You said in your Kickstarter video that you like comics because, and I'm not going to quote you exactly. I'll botch your quote now.
Perfect.
But you said that you love comics because it's something like a perfect balance between intent and content.
It's one of the purest forms of original content, intent into original content. So
what do you mean by that?
Well, I think it's because if you're basically doing everything, it's one of the prime examples where you get to decide everything, because you don't need that many people involved to make a comic book. Like you can, but you don't need it compared to animation. Yeah, it doesn't have to be assembly line. You don't need other people to do this stuff. So if you can actually write and you can do all the pieces of it, you can tell a grand story the way that you originally intended it, and there doesn't have to be any in between. There doesn't have to be anything in between you and your product to show people and go, this is what I meant to say. You're saying, this is what I mean to say. There's no past tense like, oh, this is what got in the way. This is budgetary constraints, da-da-da-da. It's just, this is what I mean. Here it is. And it's one of the purest forms of that, in my opinion.
Wow. So how do you hold on to that intent throughout a project as labor intensive as like this comic you're doing for the Kickstarter?
Again, it's one of those spinning plates where you're worrying about one page and then you pull back, and I go back and I read earlier pages and go back and go, okay, does that make sense? Does that really work there? And I've gone back and changed whole panels, which is the lovely thing about I'm doing this all digitally, is I can go, that doesn't work there. I need to move that over there. And as I was drawing yesterday, I came up with an idea and I go, okay, I have to go add that back into earlier pages. So as you go, it's definitely plate spinning on a regular basis to make sure that it all works. And then on top of that, the Kickstarter, which is insane amount of work and it's crazy emotions back and forth. But that's another whole separate entity into itself compared to the comic book. But I was doing it all late nights after freelance. So I've been working on it for about 8 months, and even my skills have changed over that. So I've already gone back to the first chapter and redid basically all the art from scratch, because I look at that and go, oh, that can't be the first 10 pages people see now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gone back a lot.
I was like 9 pages into my comic before I decided not to make it a web comic anymore, and I was already doing that. It was already like, it's not, I've got to post page 10 this week, but I have to go back and rework page 1. It's so hard.
It is. It's a balancing act, because you eventually have to just let it go and you have to say, this is what it is. But you have to get there to a certain point.
I think now I'll do more of a do the less important, since I'm not going to do it as a webcomic, I'm going to do the less important scenes first.
Okay.
As opposed to working through it linearly. So it's like, then that way it'll free me up to be able to like, it'll make me a little more free to not have to feel like I have to noodle something.
Definitely.
Into oblivion.
I always think it's better to put something on canvas than wait for it, though. Because a blank piece of paper stinks.
Oh yeah, that's
so yeah, it's always better to put something down, and then I can go fix that later and go change that.
We'll get a little bit more in depth into the Kickstarter in a minute, but before I move on here, I want to make sure that I ask you this. I feel like recently, and by recently I mean maybe the last year.
Okay.
I feel like there's been a noticeable increase of whimsy in your work and the way that you're making lines and shapes in particular. There's like you mentioned playfulness earlier. It feels like that's gotten amped up even further. Do you feel like that's true, or has that been intentional?
I think it's true. I definitely have seen it in myself. Coming from the background of my whole beginning was video games, and more of the darker tone of video games. Getting away from that, it takes a while to kind of work that out of your system. Realizing that I wanted to be a happier individual as well. So who you are as a person, where your mind is at, plays a big role in that as well. I'm a much happier person now, just in general, I think. So I think that adds to it too. And then confidence in self, because that's basically all the man hours that anybody, or woman hours, that you put in. That's basically what you're doing. It's not about any one of those drawings.
Yeah.
It's about looking at that entire huge pile that you did and being confident with each growing number that you do, and that frees you up from worrying about, where am I going to put this line? What am I going to do? It frees up that part of your brain into just making lines that you want to make.
Taking risks.
Yeah, taking risks, trying something different, trying something new, and that's all with confidence, but that only comes with the hand-eye coordination after you do hours and hours and hours of bad drawings. I think everybody's born with a million crappy drawings in their hand, and the faster you get them out, the faster they leave. So you can store them up and not draw very much, and you'll still have 900,000 crappy drawings. But the more you get them out, and that's get all million out, and then all of a sudden things just flow better and makes you a little bit happier, and get in good headspace.
I've had a bunch of my Magic Box students write me in the last couple of weeks, and they're just debilitated from intimidation. They're afraid to be bad. They're afraid to make a bad painting. And they'll say, oh, look at the work the other students are posting, and it's just so amazing, and I'm just afraid to start. Or they'll write and they'll send, instead of posting their work publicly, they'll
just
email it to me, and they'll say, and I'm like, guys, that's not how this works. You gotta be brave, and it's like there's no safer place than to do with people who are committed to the same goal and focused on the same goal as you are. And it's just amazing to me how I don't know if I didn't care. I just didn't really think about it too much. I just, posted my work and, just shared. Maybe it was the fact that I was just so encouraged all the time, because I know that obviously this isn't true for everybody, but a lot of artists really do struggle with not feeling like their parents are supportive of them.
Right. Yeah, mine weren't either, by the way. Mine were not very. They wanted me to follow in their footsteps and be, just work at the pizza restaurant my dad owned and just do that, and they didn't approve of me being an artist.
Wow. So you've done well.
Yeah, I've done all right. Yeah. And again, that's because I wanted to prove somebody wrong. Yeah. So that's where that sense comes in. Anyway, continue with the students. I want to hear about.
Anyway, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, they're just shut down, just mentally. And I'm like, you guys have got to just be brave. I mean, that's it. You just have to do it anyway. You know, it's like fearlessness is fearlessness when it comes to art, I think, is not actually being without fear.
Right.
It's, you know, it's moving forward in spite of fear.
Right.
It's taking the risk in spite of fear. It's, you know, and you know, in a way, I guess then that kind of makes me like Daredevil. You know, I'm
very much so.
I was actually just blind to my own weakness.
Nice.
I was blind to my own weakness, and that's why I just
You are a
shared it.
beautiful Ben Affleck, let me tell you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Fear is a huge motivator.
For you?
No, I think in most people I've ever met in my entire life, fear is a giant motivator. And either be a good motivator or a bad one. I know people that are brilliant and talented, and fear takes a hold of them, and so they don't go and do anything with it. And then I've seen people who conquer it and go, right, it's only fear. This is just one part. I think realizing there will always be somebody better, and there will always be somebody who hasn't learned as much as you. I'm not saying worse. I'm saying because everyone's on a stair or a hill, and they've got this big rock that everybody's pushing up. So somebody's higher up on that hill with their rock, and somebody's always lower down on their rock. But it's the same thing. So that always kind of made it a little bit easier for me to deal with, is knowing that
right.
You're always somewhere in that pack, but jumping in is very important. Just being okay. Don't let fear drive all those decisions in the negative way.
Right. It's not. I don't think of being an artist as much of a choice, really. I mean, it's like it's a choice. You have a choice between embracing the artist inside of you or being miserable. I don't meet anybody who's given up and they're like happy about it.
Right.
No one. No, it's never happened. And so one of my Magic Box students in particular wrote and said that specifically. He was like, today I'm just thinking of giving up. And I'm like, you can't.
Right.
That's not an option. You
can
can't
think
give up
about it.
Yeah, right.
You just can't do it.
You can't, and that's basically what I said.
Everyone has thought about it.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, man, there are some dark days where I think every artist I've ever met will eventually tell you, if they're being honest, they will say, yes, I've thought about, is this all worth it? Am I worth anything? I'm done with it. It's a tiring day. You just have to keep moving on. But I think everybody has felt that way at one time or another.
Man, I don't think I've ever considered giving up.
You never had any ideas of doubt at all?
You mean doubt in my own ability as an artist?
Yeah, like any of that sort of the dark side. Like, it might not be that extreme,
right,
to the point of like, I'm going to quit altogether. I'm going to break my pencil in half.
Right.
But there's those dark days where you at least entertain the idea of maybe this isn't the right decision.
I do. I mean, I've done that since I went on my own. Am I burning bridges?
Exactly. So your version of it. So no matter what, you've at least felt that version of it.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
You have to keep going, but you can't also deny that will happen to every artist, and it will happen throughout their career.
Yeah.
Because that's when I think you're just about to start learning again.
Right.
Is when you finally hit that bottom part where you're like, oh my gosh, it's either you want to grow again, and your subconscious is telling you that, so it's making you uncomfortable, so you either go learn a new tutorial or a new thing,
right,
branch out a little bit, learn a new program, whatever it is. To me, that's usually my indication when I start to feel down. I now know that I've gone through enough of these to know that I will dig myself out of it,
right, but
I also know that I'm going to learn a little bit more about me and my art and my craft on the way back up.
Right.
So to me, it's helpful now, but the first couple of times where you're unsure because it's uncomfortable because you've never gone through it before, and you're like, what is this feeling? This is horrible. How do I get out of this?
Right.
You eventually find your way out, but you can't give in to it.
Yeah, failure is necessary.
Absolutely.
You have to fail. Like,
you can't succeed without
it's
that.
Not going to happen. Like,
no.
It's not possible. So the only thing that you can try and do is stand perfectly still, which isn't going to happen either.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you'll just regress into like this, person who's unfulfilled because you aren't. And I'm again, in case we didn't make it clear earlier, we're not talking about like you're a failure if you don't get a job at Pixar.
Oh, definitely.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just being an artist and getting better at your craft, and that being an end in and of itself.
It's about the arts. It's not about the art of being at a company or,
Right, exactly.
or making art for a certain entity. It is just you being an artist and,
Right.
speaking to you.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Kentucky, I met a lot of, my grandmother did a lot of craft shows, and she would dress bears and things like that, and and they loved that. Mm-hmm. And sure, they would go and sell these bears and everything, but I mean, it's like they were, it wasn't her career, mm-hmm. but they just loved it. And there's something that switches when we get into the realm of animation, of media, animation, video games, etc., where we all of a sudden we just become obsessed with vocation. It's like obsessed with the job, and we can't. It's like we can't, or we have a very hard time separating that the financial and the perception of business success from growing as an artist, and how the first part comes first, right? Growing as an artist is the first thing. Like, that's the impulse that's inside of you. Hugh MacLeod in Ignore Everybody, which is a great book, by the way, chrisoatley.com/ignore everybody will take you to the Amazon page. He says, everyone, when they're in kindergarten, they're given a box of crayons, and then, eventually that you forget about it and you go and you live your life, and then, 40 comes along, mm-hmm. and, you have this impulse to start a new business, or to, to change careers, or to, start painting, or engage in some sort of hobby, and he goes, that's that voice inside saying, I'd like my crayons back, please.
Right.
And that's exactly it, But I wanted to jump back to the failure thing really quickly and just put a couple of great quotes. My student, Maria, she's a painting drama student. She posted on our painting drama Facebook group today, actually, doubts kill more dreams than failure ever will. I was like, man, that is it. And that's what's been going on, with this handful of Magic Box students, is that they're getting a hint of paralysis in their minds because of just doubting themselves. And we start month one, and it's like I start driving you pretty hard right away, even mm-hmm. for beginners, and and it's like I feel like that just this timidity, like to try and jump onto the moving train or something. Right. It's like man, you just gotta go for it.
You do.
Because you're not gonna get injured.
Yeah. The worst case scenario is you failed and learned a lesson.
Exactly.
I mean, that's literally the worst case scenario. Yeah. So you're sitting pretty. You're still drinking water. Right. You don't have dysentery. There's all these things that aren't happening to you. If the worst thing is happening to you is that, awesome. That's a good day. But my wife had to go through that too, because she had a business when she was young, and it didn't work out for her, and we had to recover from that business loss. And so it took her a long time to...
Here she is now.
Here she is. Direct from the helicopter.
She just rappels down.
Right. I heard you were talking about me. She has that capacity. It's crazy. But that was one of those things that we had to struggle as artists and a couple is her ability to get past that fear of that failure, and then realizing that is all part of how you lead to success, how you get to that journey is part of that. She learned all these lessons, and now she's a jewelry designer. She does all this stuff, but she had to get past all those things to do it. So I understand the students. Yeah, I understand what they're going through. There is light on the other side of the tunnel. But yeah, the worst case scenario is you failed and learned a lesson. And let me tell you, that's awesome. You should fail and learn a lot of lessons from it. And the other people will pick you up, man. This is a good community. It's good networking community, and unless you're a real jerk out there who's only in it for yourself and want to kind of put people down, which there always will be those people. Sure. For the most part, you'll find that other people are very helpful, and
but you'll spot them right away, and you can just ignore them.
Yeah, ignore the trolls.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like, I talked about this on the talk with Noah Bradley, but it bears repeating, which is, why do you care about those people's opinion anyway? It's like, and for me, I think that's part of what has. Where my insecurities and what I'm doing now, where that comes from, is because I care more than I can explain what my students think of me. Right. And that really is like, I'm really vulnerable there, because I'm very vulnerable with them, and and I want them to like me and to trust me. Right. And there's this my emotions are wrapped up in it more than it's ever been wrapped up in my art. And so I think maybe that's part of it, is that when you get when we get emotionally connected to it, it makes it harder. And then when we hear somebody that has no emotional investment in us, but they're mean, it's almost like there's a pipeline right to your heart, right to your emotions, because your art is connected to your emotions. And so it's like they get the fast track to your identity, and all of a sudden that there's almost like no speed bumps, because we open ourselves up as artists so much to our emotions and everything, and we're so sort of,
art is personal.
Yeah, we're like we deliberately increase our sensitivity, and it's like that makes it that like we work to bring down those barriers so people can exploit that and take advantage of it. Which is actually why it's so important to be careful. Like, be careful with each other. We're all wired the same way. We are all the same, so it's like, so grow up.
But also on the flip side, that's also a great lesson to learn, because when you get in a studio and your stuff is on a wall, that's part of the process, that you're being paid to make this, or you're paying to be critiqued, or you're getting paid to be critiqued. Either one of those, right? You're either at a studio or you're at a school. Both of those things, that adds to your experience, because you have to deal with whatever emotions you're feeling at that time. I've seen people totally lash out in the middle of meetings and yell back. I've seen people just be quiet and take it in and then have a hard time for weeks after that. So there's all these different things that you're going to go through, but putting your stuff out there, no matter what happens, whether it be something negative and somebody is rude or whatever, all that stuff you take in and will remember that, because it's not like that's going to be, there's no one time it's going to be the only time it happens to you. It'll happen throughout your rest of your career. So you just take that knowledge and you take it with you, and you remember how you feel and how you should react, and you learn from every single time you do it. So put yourself out there. Just get out there.
Yeah, just do it. Just because I know people are going to be wondering, the other quote was by Brian McDonald, and he said, "You have to love this enough to be bad at it." And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's, now thinking about myself, and being sort of blissfully ignorant, for the majority of my artistic growth, that was it. I just loved it so much. It's like I didn't realize that what I was doing was mediocre. It's like I don't know. I just loved painting. So it was like I just kind of did a lot of paintings, and then I became competent.
Right.
So I guess I was fortunate in that way. But you have to love it enough to be bad at it. So if something's bad, if you're doing a piece of art and you're not happy with the way it came out, well, for one, just do another one. Yeah. Because it's like, well, you'll
just do another one. Learn from the mistakes and go, okay, where did I screw up? And
because you love it, because you love this, and just turn on this podcast whenever you need to be reminded that you love this.
Right.
We're telling you, you love this. You've got to keep going.
Yeah. Andy Warhol never went back over anything that I ever drew. If he messed up, he just went on to a new drawing. And I know so many people who try to keep
fix it.
Keep chroming a poop. Or they keep trying to make something that's not very good, like snazzier and better. It's like, just move on, learn your lesson, move on to something fresh and new, and go from there. And that was the thing that I think a lot of art students kind of get focused in on. I gotta make this one thing good, and it's about the breadth of all the work. It's about all the things. Like, you may see that painting on the wall that you like of Sargent, but he's got a million things that nobody ever gets to see of all of his mistakes before he got up to that point of being at the gallery wall. Everyone has those.
Sargent made mistakes?
I think everybody did.
What is your greatest struggle as an artist?
My greatest struggle as an artist? I'd say... Currently? Besides everything? My greatest struggle is, always trying to, as a freelancer now, and kind of working from home, I'd say the most prevalent one now is constantly trying to get better as an artist. Because when I'm at a studio, I'm learning things from other people. I'm helping them out. So I'm helping the people that aren't up to me, and then I've got people who are higher up that are better than me. And so there's this hodgepodge of everything kind of happening. But as a freelancer, you have to take it into your own hands to hang out with other artists, to go do online tutorials, to try other things, or else you get very stale fast. And that's been probably the biggest thing on my mind, is to make sure that I don't get bitter about our industry,
right.
because it's very fast and
yeah.
quick to get bitter.
Yeah.
And then to keep growing as an artist, because you can get very stale fast as a freelancer. So those have been probably the most prevalent things to me right now, are those, just because that's the position that I'm in.
Yeah.
You know, and that would all change, you know, if I'm at a studio.
Right.
All of a sudden all that would change, and
Right.
like, okay, I want to learn how to paint more like this person, or I
Yeah,
want to learn
right.
more about lighting, and, you know,
Yeah.
do different things. So
What do you do to combat bitterness?
I would say a very unconventional thing is I try to be a world traveler. So it has
Nice.
nothing to do with art. I try to go. So I've been to China. I've been to Africa. We're going to India next year. We try to plan one trip as soon as we can. And because we don't make a huge amount of money, so we actually pool our resources. So every
Yeah.
month we kind of put a little bit of savings in.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the year,
Yeah.
you go, great, now that's the money, because I can't just cha-chunk,
Yeah.
put a big chunk on it.
Right.
But I can plan a year and a half in advance to
Yeah.
go, okay, there's that money. We didn't miss it. There we go. And when I go to other places in the world and I see how other people live, how they're doing, how happy they are in their everyday life, and the problems they've gone through and succeeded from, it puts anything in my world in perspective of bitterness. I can't complain about a single dang thing
Yeah,
ever,
it's awesome.
because of how other people are living their lives. Man, I got it made.
Yeah.
I get to hang out with cool people. I get to make art for a living. I should not have any complaints whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of
Yeah.
the idea that I am not the most important person is
yeah.
incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
incredibly liberating.
and you're not owed anything.
Yeah.
I always find that amazing about our culture sometimes, is that we're owed something, or I deserve this. It's like, we don't deserve anything, man. There are the people out there who have it way worse than
Yeah.
anything any of us will ever have. So there'll always be somebody who's more deserving, so how could you ever say it?
Yeah.
And that puts a lot of my world in perspective.
It's amazing.
So, yeah.
That's good.
And I learned so much. So it's reference gathering. It's all these other things. But
Yeah, right.
also worldly, as a human being, I take that experience with me, and that probably affects my art more than all the other stuff. So it's a win-win when you kind of see the world for what it is.
And is it psychologically, or
Oh yeah,
in a
psychologically,
design
design-wise, yeah, because you also get influenced by, architecture and different plants that you would never see, and animals, and everything that comes from that culture. How they interact with each other. I learned so much about China and how people interact with that many billions of people. It was an amazing experience. And Africa the same way, and how certain people interacted with each other. It's just a superb experience to go out and do it, and you remember each one of those things, and they eventually, all that stuff works your way into the story. It works into your art, your truth telling as an artist, as a designer. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. But that keeps me from ever being bitter, is just knowing that I've got it very good, and I should never ever complain about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just to jump back real quick to your comment about traveling and funding, that kind of thing. I've heard it said that the approach is not, I can't afford that. It's, how can I afford that?
Yes.
It's basically choosing what is the priority, and then deciding whether you want that more than
The new PS4.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. That's actually very relevant, because that was one of the big things for me, and that was a time budget thing. That wasn't a financial budget thing, but getting back to me painting on my computer with the Star Wars Episode 1 and Monsters Inc. books on either side, that was I still don't really play video games that often. I was playing Plants vs. Zombies though in Nashville last weekend, which was
Nice.
fun. It's about an hour. It was great. It was like a precious hour. Anyway, the point being, I put the Nintendo in a box and put it in a closet and there it stayed for years. And I'm not saying everybody has to do that. I'm just saying that was my decision, because I went, how can I afford to be the level of artist that I see represented in those books?
Right.
And that was my goal at the time. And so I went, well, I don't have a ton of time because I'm going to graduate school, and that's always taking a lot of time. So I've got to something has to go.
Right.
And so I think that it's a matter of being deliberate, and like you're saying, having a future mindset, and going, okay, I want to go to Africa in 2 years.
Right.
So we're going to here's how much that's going to cost. We're going to be careful about the budget, and then we're going to put a way to work toward that goal. Yeah. Maybe you can't get to CTNX by this coming November, but a lot of people write me and they're like, oh, it's so expensive, and it's like, guys, as far as expensive investments go, I don't know if there's really another investment that you could make this year that would be more valuable.
Yeah, that's the one thing that Julie and I decided, is that anything that goes towards our career, we don't have to concern ourselves with the budget. That
Sure.
goes in, and we find a way. Like we have less meals out, or we don't go see the newest movie or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like those things are the important parts.
Yeah.
Because those are gonna, that 2 hours or that video game, whatever it is that you're deciding, that's it. And if anybody is sitting there drinking Starbucks every other day and they say, I can't afford CTN, really take a step back and look at your priorities.
Right.
You can deal, which is more important? Is it that little tiny fix that's going to come in and out of your body in 4 hours? Or is it something that's going to last your entire career as an artist?
You don't have to go to CTNX. No one's forcing you.
No, you don't have
to. Don't complain about it. And this is also, it's important to note that we're not being insensitive to people who genuinely are in dire straits financially. There are people who are in, obviously, in that, but the vast majority of people who complain about these kinds of things, I find, could very quickly make some adjustments and just be more decisive and more future-minded about it.
And those people, once you really start thinking about that, if you're going to be a freelancer, that's imperative that you figure out your finances in that way.
Completely.
Because it's feast or famine. And you can deal with the famine if you're planning ahead. Now, if all you're doing is like getting money and then spending it, it's going to be a hard road, and you're going to take jobs you don't want to. And the whole point of freelancing is
you get stuck.
You want to take jobs that you want. You don't need to take that job. And so you get to choose. That's the point. It's like you want to be able to choose some of those jobs. And so you have to plan out. You're playing chess, not checkers. And too many people just play checkers. Like there's a move, there's a move, there's a move. Chess is you're planning 5 ahead. So play chess, not checkers with your career.
It's great. You want to play some chess right now?
Sure, I can
just make an audio recording of it.
I think they'd love that.
Compelling.
We'll just record over this and just do that, right?
It would be great if we did a lot of trash talking. Trash talking.
Oh
chess.
Checkmate. Think this is a game?
Oh my god, that was amazing. I could never have done a better job of trash talk chess. Let's talk about the Kickstarter. Can you tell us what the project is and just give us the pitch?
Sure, yeah. So the pitch is, it's called Spaced Out. It's the story of Phil and Mantis. It is about 2 space janitors, and they're 2 best friends trying to find their place in the galaxy. So all these things that I feel as a person and an artist in this world that are all very real and sometimes kind of like sad at times, I wanted to make it into a quirky, fun atmosphere. And so I went as crazy as I could, space janitor, aliens. But basically, it's just the story of how to find your place in a world that's telling you what to do all the time. So I've got, they work for a company who implodes planets, takes their energy. A lot of metaphors for our industry.
I was just about to say.
I know. And my wife's like, make sure you don't burn any bridges. I'm like, I'm not burning bridges. It's part of the story. But I see that time and time again, whether it be a metaphor for just an individual that they're kind of imploding and taking their energy, or a whole company, a bigger company buys another one and then kind of sucks all of its energy out. But these 2 janitors are trying to find their way. And then I've got these bounty hunters that are freelancers who, get outsourced from the company.
Wow.
So I've got all these kind of things all working together, and it's a story about these 2 guys just trying to make it, 2 best friends, and it's pretty much me and my buddy from high school. And I tried him to come out to California with me when we were 18, and fear kind of stopped him from doing it. He's very happy now, but that was a big thing, and that kind of was the first starting point of like, wow, I don't want that to be my decision. So he actually helped me more than he'll ever know. I don't think he'll ever listen to this podcast. I'm still best friends with him. He's still a great guy. But his path was different than mine. But the story's kind of, that 18-year-old version of he and I kind of going out in the world and being fresh eyes and not really knowing about, how we're being used and told what to do and everything. So yeah, but it's trying to put it all around a big silly story, because I'm about the whimsy and the fun and the stuff. So I wanted to say, like, okay,
Sure.
here's something personal, but how can I make this so it's also maybe a story, but it's fun at the end of the day? Because I'm not, I'm about escapism at the end of the day.
In case you're interested, you can find. Hold on, sorry.
No problem.
In case you're interested, you can find links to everything that we mentioned in this podcast episode on the blog post associated with the podcast episode. There's a short link. You can go to chrisoatley.com/bean, and that will take you to this the blog post. And if you go to chrisoatley.com/kickbean, that will take you to Brett's Kickstarter page.
I like that. Kick bean. All right.
Who is your favorite Muppet?
Ooh. Who's my favorite Muppet? I would say it was Animal for a very long time.
Good one.
Hence
Good one.
the whole drummer animal thing.
Right. Solid choice.
I might even go a little bit to the Yoda if he's technically
It's pushing it.
It's pushing it. No. I would say the other one is when they came out with the Muppets in Space, the shrimp cracked me up.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He cracked me up, and the voice actor and everything behind it.
Yeah, Bill Beretta.
Yeah, it was just awesome.
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, I would probably say those two.
Yeah.
So
All right, last question. What is the question, or what is a question, that aspiring character designers should be asking themselves but they aren't?
what's the point? And yes, we know it's the metaphor for life and all that kind of
Right.
stuff, but really, if you're just talking about character design, what's the point to what you're trying to say? Is it, because if it's just, I need something for my portfolio, that's going to come across very easily to people that was your point.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good.
Man.
It's not going to work out. But what's the point? Why are you putting your energy, and why are you asking for other people's eye energy on that thing? So what's the point?
Man, that's great.
Yeah. So as long as you have one, you're fine.
Any closing comments, parting words?
Closing comments is no. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your crew, and I appreciate any of the words that you put out to them about me. It's awesome. I think you're awesome, and I'm just happy to be here and hang out with you and learn some things in the process, and go on. Thanks for joining me on this crazy adventure I call a career. It's pretty cool.
Awesome, man. I'm ready for a hug.
All right, we can do that.
Have you ever took a trip on the Mobile line? Oh, hey, Lordy Mama, Mama, hey, Lordy Papa, Papa, all about the Mobile line. That's the road you ride, baby, ease your troubling mind. Said I got a letter, and that's the way it read.
If you are an intermediate digital painter or a beginner who likes to learn quickly by being thrown into the deep end, then I encourage you to enroll in the very first digital painting course offered by the Oatley Academy of Concept Art and Illustration. In true Oatley Academy fashion, it has a snappy title. It's called The Magic Box: Everything I Know About Digital Painting. In The Magic Box, I will show you every workflow, every technique, every time saver, everything I have developed over my past 8 years of professional digital painting experience, including my time as a visual development artist at Disney. The Magic Box will empower and equip you to paint lifelike human and animal characters, to control color, light, and atmosphere, to achieve a professional level of polish and dimension in your work, to avoid overworked paintings and the flat coloring book look forever, to increase your speed and efficiency with versatile techniques that will work in any painting. And of course, to break through the overwhelm of working in Photoshop. Plus, you'll have access to a huge community of passionate, focused artists with whom you can connect and collaborate. So if you want a clear step-by-step method designed specifically for concept artists and illustrators, head to chrisoatley.com/magicbox and enroll today. It's completely risk-free, and you get instant access to the first set of lessons as soon as you enroll. Here are just a few testimonials from current Magic Box students. @John Acuna says, "At Chris Oatley, those lighting tutorials helped me make a major breakthrough today. 2 days of work done in as many hours. Thanks." @Frederick_S says, "First time I've looked at a painting I've done and not wanted to scrap it ASAP. Thanks, @Chris Oatley." @Thousandfold Art says, @Chris Oatley, that lesson changed my life, dude. #MagicBox. And @Drake Studio says, "The Magic Box courses from @Chris Oatley have made me question my entire digital art workflow. The learning, it hurts. Hurts so good." I love you guys. Yes, so head to chrisoatley.com/magicbox to learn more, to enroll, and we would love to see you join the Oatley Academy.